All right, welcome back, and we're going to move into Unit 6, which is going to deal with animal systems. We'll have some human system references here, along with some connections to other animals. Basically, talking about some anatomy, some things about the digestive system, the immune system, the skeletal system, nervous system, so on and so forth. So today we'll focus on the introduction to this unit, which will be learning targets 1 through 4. We'll review some things we talked about before Christmas, and we'll set the stage for the nervous system, which is going to take us a couple of days to get through. So one thing we need to remind ourselves of is the level of organization. It says in mammals that should just really completely level of organization in all living things. And remember, cells being the smallest, organ systems being the largest. Okay, think back to the definition of life. A cell is the smallest unit of life that can exist. You get multiple cells together to do a job that creates tissues. You get multiple different tissue types together to do the same job that creates organs, and you get multiple organs together to do a job, and that creates organ systems. So blood is important. Blood is often misunderstood as far as understanding that there's many components that go into blood. So blood is a type of connective tissue, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will here in just a little bit, that is going to carry oxygen and nutrients to the body and waste out. A good question in class I normally get is, well, what type of waste does blood carry? Well, the big one is going to be carbon dioxide in most animals, removing that carbon dioxide from the body, carrying it back to the lungs for it to be exhaled. So blood has four parts. First one being plasma. We've talked about plasma before, but just to remind yourselves that plasma is the liquid portion of the blood. You have red blood cells, which carry oxygen throughout the body and remove carbon dioxide from the body by carrying it back to the lungs. White blood cells play a major role in the defense system of the body, fight infection and remove foreign particles from the blood. And then last is platelets. These are fragments of cells that help to clot the blood when there is a wound. Keeps the process of bleeding from being endless. You can have too much of a clotting factor and too little of a clotting factor. We'll talk about that later. But the big thing to take home here is that blood is a tissue as far as we consider, the definition of the levels of organization, because it is made up of multiple different types of cells that come together to do a job. So in animals, there's four basic tissue types. You have muscular tissue, connective tissue, nervous tissue, and epithelial tissue. And we'll talk about each of these briefly. Today, we'll talk about muscular tissue and epithelial tissue a little bit more in depth than we will connective tissue and nervous tissue. But when we get into the actual systems, we'll hit back on these again. So muscular tissues move things, and they move things throughout the body, whether it be organs or whether it be materials or whether they keep things from moving throughout the body. Muscular tissue is able to contract, which is going to give it the ability to move things. Three different types of muscular tissue. The first one is going to be skeletal muscle, which are these are the muscle tissues that attach to the bones in order to move them. Most of these muscles are voluntary. And what we mean by voluntary is conscious thought has to go into moving these muscles. Okay, for instance, you think to flex your bicep. Okay, it's not a natural thing that happens on its own. Well, I should say not natural. It's not something that happens automatically. You put thought into that action occurring. Okay, smooth muscles are involuntary muscles found in hollow organs and blood vessels, and these are going to be used to make spaces smaller, which is going to aid in the movement of materials or stop the movement of materials. These muscles are typically involuntary, um, which means that they're going to happen, for lack of a better term, automatically. Right? It's just you don't have to think about it. You don't have to put conscious thought into making, say, your blood vessels shrink to push blood through the extremities of your toes and fingers. Okay, that's going to happen on its own. Last type is cardiac muscles, and these muscles are only going to be found in the heart. Remember that the heart is just one big muscle. And these muscles are going to cause the heart to contract and pump blood to the lungs and the rest of the body. And cardiac muscles also are going to be involuntary muscles. They're going to happen on their own. you don't have to tell your heart to beat. It's going to do it on a steady rhythm on its own. All right, so connective tissue, big thing with connective tissue is it's for support, protection, and connection of the body. Some examples, of course, we already talked about blood, uh, which is going to be common to every animal. Then you have bone and cartilage are connective tissues. And you have ligaments and tendons are connective tissues. So anything that deals with structure, okay, anything that's going to deal with structure and protection of things inside the body, moving the body, typically is going to deal back to connective tissue. When we get to the skeletal system, the muscular system, we'll talk more about these. Nervous tissue, okay, kind of short, sweet, to the point with nervous tissue today. Tomorrow we'll really dive into nervous tissue. So nervous tissue sends electrical signals throughout the body of the animal. This is the method of communication from one part of the body to the next. Okay, so this is how information about the environment is gathered, interpreted, and decisions are made, whether it be a conscious decision or an unconscious decision. And last is going to be epithelial tissues. This covers the body surfaces, absorbs materials, and secretes materials. So these tissues are going to be arranged in two different ways. Two important vocab terms here. You have stratified and simple. So stratified tissues are going to be when the cells are arranged in multiple layers, layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers. I'll show you a picture here in a minute. Simple arrangement or simple tissue cells are going to be arranged in a single layer. Okay? You also have three different cell shapes when it comes to epithelial tissues. You have squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. So squamous are flat cells, cuboidal are going to be cubed-shaped cells, and columnar are going to be column-shaped cells. So if you look here, you see cuboidal. Let me get my mouse away from that bottom bar. You see cuboidal, you see squamous, and you see columnar. And you also see simple and stratified. Okay, I want you to notice the difference there. Simple, again, being one layer, stratified being multiple layers. And that, I believe, is the end of learning targets 1 through 4. So be sure you complete the form that goes with this. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, then we will see you tomorrow for moving on into the nervous system. Thank you.